Hey everyone, before I start this review, I want to first mention that the WGA and SAG-AFTRA, the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild, are currently on strike, and that without the writers and actors that are currently striking, this movie would not exist. So, I believe that we should all support those unions, so check out their websites and go support them in any way you can. Donate to their funds, because at the end of the day, these actors, these artists, these writers, they're what's important. They're what gives us these movies that we love to watch and I love to review all the time. And these goddamn corporate executives hoarding all the money, they're the ones screwing everyone over. So support the unions, fuck the corporates, and let's get on with the review. Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru, and I'm going to be riding solo today because my good buddy Count Jackula is not feeling too well and could use a lot of love. So if you're following him on social media, be sure to send him such love. Anyway, the movie that we'll be talking about today is the new horror comedy The Blackening from director Tim Story, who some of you may know as the director of Barbershop, Taxi, those very middling Fantastic Four movies from the early 2000s, and 2019 Shaft. And I think he also directed Ride Along somewhere in there. But thankfully, this movie is way more like Barbershop than any of those other movies, but I'll elaborate as to how later on in this review. So just keep that thought in the back of your head while I talk about the rest of the movie. Anyway, the thing is about The Blackening is that it's not just a normal horror comedy, it is also a meta-horror comedy. In the vein of other such horror movies such as Scream, Cabin in the Woods, and Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And also, unlike those other horror movies, this movie isn't necessarily about deconstructing how horror movies work, but rather a meta-commentary on Black culture as a whole, as well as how that culture intersects with horror movies. But to be clear, the way the Black community intersects with horror movies is just one aspect of this movie. It also talks about the way the Black community intersects with queerness, as well as colorism, and a multitude of other issues. Most of which I'm not exactly qualified to talk about, and this movie explains way better than I could. And in case you haven't figured it out yet, that's how this movie is more like Barbershop than Tim Story's other movies, because this movie, just like Barbershop, is all about the in-community conversations about Blackness within the Black community. It's basically horror movie Barbershop. That said, do not get it twisted, this movie is still 100% a horror comedy, so it's filled with a ton of laughs. And personally, I was laughing my ass off the entire time. The funny quips, the banter, the pop culture references, and of course the physical comedy are all top-notch in this film. The only thing this movie doesn't have is a lot of gore, but I'm willing to let that slide because there's actually a really good reason why it doesn't have that. But that reason is kind of a spoiler, so I'll just leave that for the spoiler section. But violence and gore isn't necessarily why you want to watch this movie in the first place. The reason why you want to watch this movie is because the writing is so good. Even though the movie isn't necessarily about deconstructing horror movies, it's very obvious that the writers of this movie have seen horror movies and play with your expectations throughout the movie. Though I will say there is a mystery at the center of this movie that was just a smidge predictable, at least for me it was. But I'm willing to let that slide because the rest of the movie works so damn well. Like the way this movie introduces you to this cast of characters that at first feel like one-dimensional stereotypes, but then develops them further as the movie goes on and makes you really care about them by the end of the film is just masterfully done. That said, there is at least one character who's pretty off-putting for most of the film's runtime. He straight up feels like a cartoon character, like he exists in a different universe than anyone else in the movie, but the way they stick that character's landing, oh man, it really sells it. It makes it work in retrospect. But even still, I should warn you that for most of the film's runtime, I found that character really irritating, and if you find yourself in that position just like I did, then just hold out. Wait till the end of the movie, see where they take that character, because you just might like it. And the final thing I want to say about The Blackening before we move on to the spoilers is that while I very much enjoyed this movie and consider it one of the best horror movies of the year and highly recommend it to anyone that wants to see it, I should also tell you that this is very much a movie made by Black people for Black people. So if you find yourself lost in the cultural references in the movie, it was not necessarily made with you as the audience in mind. That being said, if you watch the movie and within the first 10 minutes you find yourself laughing your ass off, then you're very much enough in the know to enjoy yourself with this movie. Basically, if you've ever been to a cookout, and more importantly know what I mean when I say that, then you'll probably enjoy this movie. And with that being said, my fellow Gorehounds, The Blackening is currently available on various streaming platforms to rent, but it is the theatrical pricing because it's technically still in theaters right now, which also means if you want to go see it in theaters, you totally can. It won't be the same without a large crowd, but it will still be a great theatrical experience, and I highly recommend you go support the movie that way. But if not, like I said, it is currently available on streaming. Pay the $20, it's totally worth it. Which of course means it's finally time for us to move on to the spoilers. So this movie centers around a group of old friends and former college students who are gathering together at an old cabin in the woods in order to celebrate Juneteenth. And while at this cabin, they stumble across this racist-ass board game called The Blackening, which then proceeds to challenge each of their blackness, essentially putting them through a series of games that all basically amount to, are you black enough? And to make things extra spicy, there are these masked, clearly Caucasian men that are running around with weapons trying to kill them throughout the night while they try to survive this game. And the first major spoiler of this movie is the reveal of who turns out to be the mastermind of this whole event. And that mastermind turns out to be Clifton, the weird Urkel-esque nerd guy who no one knows who even invited him in the first place. Which, funny enough, was how I was able to figure out that he was the guy behind it all before the movie ever really revealed that. In fact, I figured it out within the first few scenes he showed up in. That being said, there was one aspect of this reveal that genuinely shocked me, because I had convinced myself that the whole Steve Urkel act he was doing was just that, an act. But by the end of the movie, it's made very clear that no, he really is that cartoony. That's who he is. And it's actually his whole motivation for why he's doing this all in the first place. Because back in college, they challenged his blackness so damn hard for being so damn nerdy, and he ended up accidentally killing a woman after getting drunk after one night of particularly intense bullying. So of course, now he's back for revenge. Which leads me to the other spoiler I want to talk about, and it kind of ties into the whole this movie not having gore thing, and that's the fact that no one from this main cast actually dies. Don't get me wrong, there is a kill at the beginning of the movie. It's actually the opening kill that establishes the thread of the movie. And it also references Scream 2, which I greatly appreciated. But after that point, it's pretty much just the killers that die. And this is for a very good reason, because this is actually one aspect of the movie that is partially deconstructing horror movies. And that's the old joke that, the black guy dies first. And that's what's kind of genius here, because yeah, in this case, the black guy technically does die first, but then the rest live. It's like that bit from Doctor Who, this time everyone lives. And finally, the last spoiler I want to talk about is the mid-credits gag. Because basically, when this movie ends and the main characters defeat Clifton, they're left with this really awkward and horrible choice of whether or not to call the cops, which of course leads to a discussion of whether or not the cops might mistake them for being the bad guys, so they instead call the fire department, who then arrive in the mid-credits scene and hose them down with a fire hose. Because even the goddamn fire department can't be trusted. And I gotta say, I laughed a lot throughout the entirety of this movie, but that end credit bit had me rolling. Partially because I didn't expect it to be there, and partially because, oh my god, that's so true. And dark. But still true. Anyway, my fellow Gorehounds, I thoroughly enjoyed The Blackening, and I hope that you do too. Like I said, it's currently available on various streaming platforms. Go pick your poison and enjoy. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you would like to help out my channel more directly, be sure to check out my Patreon page, and remember, If you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way.
And trust me when I say, with all the things that are changing in my life recently, I'm definitely going to need that Patreon going forward. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please do.
And if you made it this far into the vlog, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag O'Reilly Auto Parts Jingle. 'Cause if you know, you know.